Above the curve of Earth, where the black of space swallowed every horizon, an alien vessel drifted unseen. Its hull was a lattice of obsidian plates that shimmered faintly, bending light around its edges. Within, a council of pale insectoid figures leaned toward a central display, watching streams of human broadcasts captured from the blue planet below. They had cataloged dozens of species across the galaxy, each one tested, classified, and either absorbed or erased. Humanity was new, unmapped, unpredictable. They expand without permission, hissed one of the watchers, its mandibles clicking. They burn their own world and still multiply. They climb into orbit with scrap metal and stubbornness. It is not sustainable. Another tilted its head, eyes catching the flicker of Earth's nightlights. But they endure. I have seen them adapt to deserts, oceans, vacuum. Their technology is crude, yet they innovate faster than most advanced races we've known. Caution is wise. The council shifted in uneasy silence. Their directive was clear: classify humanity, determine if it would become a rival or memory. Far below, aboard the orbital station Sentinel-9, Commander Aisha Karim adjusted her headset and frowned at a distortion sweeping through their communications grid. A career soldier with the precision of a surgeon, she had no patience for anomalies. Beside her floated Dr. Elias Ward, astrophysicist, his hair untamed by both zero gravity and indifference. Signal interference, she said, tapping the console. Elias squinted at the data streams. Not interference. Pattern. Look, see how it repeats. He enlarged the waveform, its symmetry impossible for natural noise. That's deliberate. Someone or something is talking. Talking from where? Aisha asked. He hesitated, excitement brightening his features. Out there. He pointed to the viewport, where stars glittered like scattered shards of glass. The distortion pulsed again, almost a heartbeat. On Earth, ground control dismissed a report as equipment malfunction. The station had suffered glitches before. But Aisha wasn't satisfied. Her instincts told her this wasn't just failing hardware. She ordered deeper scans, logging every fluctuation. Within hours, an unexpected response arrived. Not on human frequencies, but embedded in their satellite systems. A small weather satellite blinked out of existence. No explosion, no debris. 1 second it existed. The next it was gone. Aisha's voice was sharp. That wasn't equipment failure. Elias leaned forward, captivated. It's a test. They're prodding us, seeing how we react. The crew erupted in argument. Some demanded alerting global defenses. Others urged silence. To Aisha, one truth became clear. This was first contact, and it had already begun. In the alien vessel, the Council observed humanity's frantic response. Within minutes of the satellite's disappearance, emergency teams rerouted weather monitoring. Engineers proposed replacement strategies. Amateur radio operators across continents triangulated the anomalous signals, sharing data in online forums faster than governments could suppress it. They improvise, one alien whispered, as if chaos is fuel. The presiding elder narrowed its eyes. Or as if they are too unstable control. Back on Sentinel-9, Elias floated closer to viewport, staring at the endless dark. Imagine it, Commander, he murmured. An intelligence older than us, watching. What do they want? Peace? Aisha folded her arms. And what if they don't? Curiosity doesn't stop bullets. Before Elias could answer, alarms cut through the station. Power systems flickered. Lights dimmed. The interference had grown stronger, no longer a ripple but a storm, pulling at their systems with invisible claws. Stabilizers offline, one technician shouted. Compensate manually. Aisha barked, strapping herself to a console. Her voice was iron, steady against a panic. Keep us steady. The crew wrestled the failing systems, fingers flying across controls. Elias caught the repeating patterns laced in the interference. They weren't random attacks. They were signals, structured, escalating. They're speaking to us, he said. Feels more like they're strangling us, muttered the pilot, sweat drifting in shimmering droplets. For a full hour, the station resisted collapse. By the end, exhausted but intact, Sentinel, 9 stood operational. Systems restored, crew alive. Humanity had passed the first silent trial without even knowing it had been set. In the alien chamber, the council recorded every detail. Where other species had fractured, humans had held together. Where others had panicked, humans had improvised. One alien's mandibles clicked with unease. They are dangerous. The elder's gaze lingered on the spinning planet. Cities sparkled beneath clouds. A species alive and stubborn. Dangerous, yes, but perhaps not in the way we expected. Above the Earth Sentinel, 9 drifted in fragile silence. Aisha sat at the viewport, her reflection cast against the stars, jaw set, mind turning over possibilities. Somewhere in the void, someone had tested them. Humanity had answered, not with weapons, not yet, but with defiance of failure. She whispered under her breath, unheard by her crew, "Whoever you are, we're not going to break." The stars offered no reply, only the faint pulse of interference, steady and deliberate, as if promising this was just the beginning. Word count, 1,000. Would you like me to carry the same tightly focused, scene-driven style into Section 2, also around 1,000 words? Or do you want to expand Section 2 closer to the 1,600-word outline we made earlier? The interference returned 3 nights later, sharper and more insistent, gnawing at Sentinel-9 systems like invisible teeth. Aisha was already awake when the alarms began their chorus. She drifted to control board with a practice push, her face a mask of discipline. The crew stirred in groggy confusion, while Elias, eyes ringed from sleepless study, was already at his terminal, muttering calculations under his breath. "This isn't just a signal," he said. His voice carried a fragile urgency, as though every second stolen from the chaos was precious. "It's layered. They're embedding multiple streams of information inside each pulse. I think they're escalating the conversation." Aisha shot him a glance, tightening the straps across her chest. Escalating or baiting? The question hung between them, heavy and unanswerable. On Earth, governments still dismissed the disturbances as technical mishaps, but she could feel the lie. Every flicker of power, every glitch in the airlocks, every flickering sensor. It was a hand testing the hull for weakness. Outside, Earth glowed serene and oblivious. Inside, tension hardened into a constant companion. Crew who had once shared laughed and now spoke in clipped phrases. Yet even as the station groaned beneath alien pressure, no one surrendered. Engineers patched systems with jury-rigged wiring. Mathematicians scribbled equations across tablets, and Elias fed the interference into translation algorithms until his fingertips ached. The aliens watched every moment. In their dark chamber, disagreements sharpened. One faction insisted humans be culled now, before they multiplied further. The other, smaller faction whispered of opportunity. What could be learned from a species that treated catastrophe as raw material? They respond as if failure were simply another tool, an observer noted. The presiding elder remained silent, its many eyes fixed on the human's resilience. It had seen civilizations collapse under gentler trials, surrendering to despair. Yet these creatures adapted as though despair were fuel. Back aboard Sentinel-9, exhaustion gnawed at Elias. He floated by the viewport, watching a sliver of dawn rise across Earth's curve. "They're forcing us into a dialogue we don't understand," he murmured. "And we're answering without meaning to. Every repair we make, every improvisation, it tells them something about us." Aisha studied him. His words carried both awe and fear, and she knew he was right. Their survival was not just survival. It was a message. She forced the thought down, focused instead on the immediate. "Then our message should be clear, we won't bend." Her determination steadied the crew, though each day grew heavier. When the next satellite vanished, this time a vital navigation relay, the impact rippled across Earth. Flights grounded. Shipping routes snarled. Governments snapped awake. For the first time, nations that bickered over borders and resources funneled data into shared archives, desperate for answers. Rival scientists exchanged notes without hesitation. Soldiers trained side by side. A common enemy, unseen yet undeniable, had forced unity. Elias scanned the collaborative streams pouring into the station's uplink. They're adapting faster than we are, he said, all woven through his fatigue. Every time the interference shifts, someone on Earth cracks it within hours. Students, hobbyists, retirees. It's as if the entire species is conspiring against the dark. Aisha allowed herself a thin smile. Good. Let them see what happens when we stop fighting each other. The alien council grew unsettled. Humanity's cohesion under pressure was not expected. Other species had turned inward, hoarding knowledge, fracturing into violence. Humans did the opposite, scattering their discoveries like sparks, each one igniting another. They are not efficient, one alien scoffed, its limbs twitching in disdain. They are relentless, another countered softly. Dissent deepened, lines hardening within the council chamber. For the first time in centuries, their consensus frayed. On Sentinel-9, the crew braced as another wave of interference swept across their systems. Consoles dimmed, oxygen circulation faltered, and for a moment silence choked the station. Elias' pulse hammered at his ears as he traced the interference again. The patterns were growing clearer, coalescing into something that resembled language. Not words, not yet, but structure, syntax without meaning. They're speaking, he whispered, more to himself than anyone. Not just testing, communicating. Then it's time they stop hiding, Aisha said, voice clipped but steady. Her crew watched her, their faces pale in the glow of failing monitors. She was their anchor, the gravity that kept them from drifting into panic. Her hand lingered on the viewport glass, fingertips brushing against the infinite dark. She knew they were out there, staring back, watching every heartbeat, every failure, every triumph. The thought chilled her, but it also steeled her resolve. When the storm of interference finally eased, the station systems remained battered but intact. Once again, humanity had weathered the invisible trial. The crew slumped in their harnesses, drained yet unbroken. Far away, the alien elder rose from its seat. Enough shadows, it said at last. They have proven themselves difficult to silence. Let us see how they stand when we speak openly. Across the void Sentinel, 9 shuddered as a shape emerged against the stars. A massive silhouette, blacker than the surrounding void, slid into view, blotting out constellations. Lines of pale blue light traced its edges like veins of frozen fire. The crew fell silent. No one moved, no one breathed. For the first time, the watchers stepped from the dark. Aisha's throat tightened, but she did not look away. Elias' eyes widened, pupils shrinking against the impossible scale of the vessel. It was not war, not yet, but it was a revelation that changed everything. The interference ceased. A new signal pulsed across every channel, clear and deliberate. It was a voice, not words with tones that resonated in bone and marrow, impossible to ignore. Humanity had been called to judgment. Aisha exhaled slowly, her jaw set. So, she murmured, almost to herself, now the game truly begins. The station floated on in fragile silence, suspended between Earth and Leviathan's ship, between fear and defiance, between the known and the abyss that waited beyond. And the stars, for the first time, seemed to lean closer, listening. Word count 1,000. Would you like me to carry the same tension and pacing into Section 3? Or do you want the finale to expand into a more cinematic, larger-scale resolution closer to the 1,600-word target we outlined earlier? The ship's shadow stretched across Sentinel-9, swallowing its narrow frame in silence. The crew stared to the viewport, every breath caught between awe and dread. The vessel was vast enough to eclipse the stars, its geometry alien yet deliberate, each line a reminder that this was no natural phenomenon. It had chosen to be seen, and in doing so, it declared that humanity's anonymity was over. Aisha steadied herself with the practiced discipline of command. Her voice was low, measured, each word a tether for her crew's fraying nerves. We treat this as first contact. No panic, no mistakes. Elias, gripping the console with pale fingers, leaned toward the repeating tones pulsing across their systems. The sound vibrated against bone, more felt than heard. He had spent nights dissecting their hidden signals, and now, at last, the language began to take shape in his mind. It's structured, he whispered. They're not threatening us. They're challenging us. The tones sharpened, reforming into patterns, and suddenly every screen on the station flared white. Words did not appear, but images, impressions, mountains crumbling, oceans boiling, fire devouring forests. And then, against the destruction, small figures stood and endured. Humanity recognized itself in the mirror held up by the alien hand. Fragile, reckless, yet unbroken. They won a trial, Elias said, his voice hushed with a mix of reverence and fear. A test of worth. Aisha narrowed her eyes. Or an execution wrapped in ceremony. The station groaned as if responding. Bulkheads shivered, gravity faltered, and then with a blinding flash the crew was elsewhere. The void outside the viewport had changed. No longer Earth's familiar curve, no scattered satellites, no distant moon. They hung in a constructed arena, space folded into an environment not entirely physical, not entirely real. The alien vessel hovered above, judge and jury. "Everyone stay sharp," Aisha ordered, though her voice was steadier than her racing heart. The crew scrambled to reorient themselves as new challenges surged. Systems failed in precise sequences, forcing them to improvise repairs under impossible time constraints. Navigation feeds flipped into chaos, demanding mathematical solutions faster than computers could manage. Oxygen levels dipped, then stabilized, then dipped again, testing their endurance and ingenuity. Elias worked furiously beside her, sweat drifting in trembling spheres around his face. "It's deliberate," he said between frantic keystrokes. "Every breakdown is solvable, but only if we cooperate, only if we trust each other." The trial pressed harder. A breach tore through the station's outer hull, sending alarms shrieking. The crew moved with frantic precision, sealing it with scraps of metal and sheer determination. Another surge hit their communication systems, reducing them to handwritten notes, and shouted commands passed through narrow corridors. Still they adapted, still they endured. From the alien vessel, the council watched, divided more sharply than ever. Some demanded the trial be ended with annihilation. Humanity was too dangerous, too resourceful, too stubborn. Others urged patience, seeing in these desperate struggles not menace but potential. Inside the station, hours stretched like years. Exhaustion gnawed at every face, but no one faltered. Even in silence, there was unity. When a console burned out, 2 engineers stripped wires with bare hands. When oxygen thinned, crews shared masks, each trusting the other to take their turn. Sacrifice was no command. It came naturally, instinctively. Elias, half delirious from lack of rest, turned to Aisha. His voice cracked, but the fire in his eyes remained. "Do you see? This is what they don't understand. We don't survive because we're the strongest or the smartest. We survive because we refuse to do it alone." Aisha met his gaze, the truth of it resonating even through her fatigue. "Then that's the message we send." The trial reached its crescendo. A firestorm of energy cascaded through the station, threatening to tear it apart. Alarms blared, systems collapsed, panels burst into sparks. The crew braced for the end. Yet even as destruction bore down, hands reached for hands, voices shouted directions. Lives were risked without hesitation. No one chose themselves above the whole. The alien vessel trembled. In the council chamber, silence replaced argument. The elders studied the humans, their faces lit with sweat and grit, their defiance shining through collapse. It spoke at last, its voice carrying finality. They endure not despite their fragility, but because of it. They will not be broken. To destroy them is to admit fear. The storm ceased. The lights of Sentinel 9 flickered back to life. The viewport cleared, and beyond it Earth shone once more, blue and brilliant against the void. The alien vessel hovered still, vast and inscrutable, but its weapons remained quiet. Elias sagged against his harness, tears pricking unbidden at his eyes. Aisha floated to the viewport, her expression steady though her body ached with exhaustion. She pressed her palm against the glass, staring at the Leviathan that had held their fate so casually in its grasp. The tones returned one final time, not jagged but steady, resonant. They carried no clear translation, yet the intent was unmistakable. Not victory, not surrender, acknowledgement. And then the ship was gone, vanishing into the dark as if it had never been. For a long time, the crew sat in silence, listening to the hum of restored systems. Aisha finally broke it, her voice quiet but firm. We've been measured, we've been watched, and we've been spared. Elias turned toward her, exhaustion softening his features into something almost childlike. Spared, he echoed. Or chosen. She didn't answer. Her gaze remained fixed on the stars, each one a possibility, each one a promise. Humanity had been tested and had not broken. The galaxy knew their name now, whether as threat or ally, and there would be no returning to ignorance. She whispered to herself, so softly it was almost swallowed by the hum of the station. Whatever comes next, we'll be ready. The stars glittered in answer, and the silence of space felt less like emptiness and more like waiting. Word count, 1,000. Would you like me to now combine sections 1 to 3 into a continuous draft, 3,000 words, so you can see how it flows as a single narrative, or would you prefer I expand each section toward the original 1,600 to 1,700 word outline target? Earth had never looked smaller to Aisha than it did after the ship vanished. The blue curve floated beneath them, serene and oblivious, yet the silence and orbit carried the weight of judgment. She drifted by the viewport, studying its surface as if memorizing every contour, while the crew behind her worked with subdued efficiency. The trial had ended, but its shadow clung to them all. Every spark of a panel, every flicker of static in the comms felt like an echo of alien eyes still watching. Elias hunched over his terminal, though exhaustion dragged at his shoulders. He had replayed the last tones dozens of times, running them through filters, algorithms, even crude hand-drawn waveforms. Each attempt failed to pin them down. They weren't words, not truly, but intent, a farewell perhaps, or warning. He rubbed his temples, muttering, they left something behind, a message we're not smart enough to read yet. Aisha floated closer, resting a hand on the console. Her gaze softened for a moment. You'll drive yourself into the ground chasing ghosts. We survived. That's what matters. But survival isn't an ending, Elias countered, turning toward her with an intensity that startled even himself. It's a prelude. They tested us and found us worthy or dangerous, or both. Either way, we've been seen. And once seen, we can't be unseen. She didn't argue. The truth of it lay heavy in her chest. Already, signals from Earth poured into Sentinel. 9, governments demanding reports, militaries demanding data, scientists demanding answers. Everyone wanted to frame the encounter as their own victory, their own narrative. But Aisha knew it was fragile, perilous ground. Humanity had been spared this time. Next time might not be mercy. The crew convened in the central hub, faces drawn, voices subdued. They reviewed logs, compared accounts, pieced together fragments of the alien presence. Fear threaded through the air, unspoken but palpable. What unsettled them most was not the trial itself, but the silence afterward. No demands, no ultimatums, only absence. It was like surviving a storm and realizing the sea might rise again without warning. Elias broke the quiet. Do you realize what this means? Every story we've told ourselves, about being alone, about the stars being empty, it's over. We are not a curiosity anymore. We are participants. Aisha's response was sharp, not unkind, but edged with steel. Participants in what? A war? An alliance? A hunt? You can't dress ignorance up as triumph. The word struck the crew harder than any alarm. They understood now. Humanity was no longer simply striving upward into space. It was stepping onto a stage it didn't yet understand, where the rules were written in languages older than their species. That night, or what passed for night aboard Sentinel 9, Aisha allowed herself a moment of solitude. She strapped into her bunk, but left the viewport uncovered. Watching Earth's shadow turn beneath her, her thoughts returned, unbidden, to the final moments of the trial. Hands reaching for hands, sacrifice without hesitation, defiance without arrogance. Perhaps that was what the Watchers had seen. Perhaps that was why humanity had survived. Yet a seed of unease gnawed at her. If cooperation was their strength, What would happen when the fear of another encounter pushed Earth's nations back into suspicion and rivalry? If the aliens returned to find division instead of unity, the next judgment might not end with survival. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. Elias drifted in, hair disheveled, tablet clutched awkwardly. "I decoded a fragment," he said without preamble. His voice quivered, not from exhaustion but from discovery. "It's incomplete, but I'm certain of this much. The signal wasn't just acknowledgement. It was direction." Aisha's pulse quickened. Direction? He rotated the tablet, showing a star map rendered in jagged lines of alien logic overlaid with human constellations. A cluster of points glowed faintly, far beyond the reach of current propulsion. "Coordinates," he whispered. "They want us to come." The silence between them deepened, heavy with possibility. This wasn't merely survival, nor was it threat alone. It was invitation. Or perhaps summons. Aisha's jaw tightened. "We're not ready." "Maybe we're not meant to be ready," Elias replied. His eyes burned with conviction, the same spark that had carried him through endless nights of deciphering alien echoes. "Maybe readiness isn't the point. Maybe the point is whether we'll try." The next morning, the crew assembled once more. Aisha stood at the center, her voice steady though the weight of command pressed harder than ever. She shared what Elias had uncovered, the coordinates shimmering like a challenge against the star map. Murmurs rippled through the room, fear, excitement, disbelief. "Whatever this is," Aisha said, "it isn't a choice we make lightly. But make no mistake, humanity has already been drawn into this. Ignoring it won't protect us. Facing it might." The crew's eyes met hers, weary yet unwavering. The trial had forged something between them, something that stretched beyond this fragile station. They were no longer isolated individuals orbiting a single world. They were representatives, unwilling perhaps, but undeniable. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Elias broke the silence with a thin, tired smile. "So, Commander, do we answer call?" Aisha glanced at Earth, so small and fragile against the vast dark. Her chest ached with the enormity of the choice, but her voice, when it came, was firm. "Yes. Because if they test us again, I want them to know we will not wait to be summoned. We will step forward on our own terms." The decision lingered in the recycled air, sharp as a blade, irreversible as sunrise. The stars beyond the viewport gleamed like a million watchful eyes, patient and unblinking. Somewhere in that infinite silence, an answer waited, and humanity, fragile and reckless and unyielding, had just agreed to chase it. Word count, 1,000. Would you like me to keep building further sections 5, 6, etc., in the same tone to expand this into a full-length novella, 8, 10K words? Or should I now merge sections 1 to 4 into a continuous flowing draft so you can see the whole arc stitched together?